arrest and charges of the most serious.
Join us at 7 a.m., 12 noon, 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. daily.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday here in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Organized labor in Nigeria says strike continues pending Tuesday review meeting.
The President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, is committed to a national minimum wage that is higher than 60,000. The tripartite committee is to meet every day for the next 1 week with a view to arriving at an agreeable national minimum wage.
Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs said Lavrov ends trip to Guinea with assurance to work closely with the African nation.
We are helping Guinea to train civilian specialists. There is also military training, which the students of the Guinean University are benefiting from. I know that it is important to strengthen our cooperation in military and technical matters.
Political atmosphere gets tense in Ghana as NPP NDC expressed varied stance on Electoral Commission directive to withdraw party agents, and the Gambian government refused report of scarcity of cement. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Well, let's begin this afternoon with the updates of the ongoing strike in Nigeria as it enters day 2, with the Nigeria Labour Congress saying it would continue with the nationwide strike which began on Monday pending the outcome of its meeting with its organ scheduled for Tuesday. NLC's comment came hours after the federal government convened a meeting with labour unions, including the Trade Union Congress, TUC, held at the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to end the strike. However, after exhaustive deliberation and engagement, NLC said FG agreed to a minimum wage higher than 60,000 naira. The NLC then said it will be meeting with its organs today, adding that no worker will be victimized due to the industrial action. Abdullah Hassan has the rest of the story.
The Nigerian government was forced to meet with the two largest unions on Monday following the shutdown of critical sectors of the economy such as transport, education, health and energy as workers yielded to the organized labor's call for industrial action. After more than 5 hours of deliberations at an emergency meeting chaired by George Akume, Secretary to the Government of the Federation SGF, an agreement was reached. This agreement is, however, not on the minimum wage, but the path to it.
The President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is committed to a national minimum wage that is higher than 60,000. The tripartite committee is to meet every day for the next 1 week with a view to arriving at an agreeable national minimum wage. Labour undertakes to convene a meeting of its organs immediately to consider this commitment. No worker will be victimized as a result of the industrial action.
The June 3 document of the Tripartite Minimum Wage Committee was signed by the government representatives, including the Minister of State for Labour, Nkiruka Onyejocha, and the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris Malagi. Meanwhile, Joe Ajero, the NLC president, and Festus Osifo of the TUC signed on behalf of the organized labor. While a truce appears to have been reached, questions remain about the capacity of state governments and the private sector to pay whatever minimum wage will be agreed upon in a week. At present, Nigeria's inflation is at 33%, the highest in 2 decades, and a debt portfolio of around $114 billion as of June 2024.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. Meanwhile, public institutions and services remain closed following the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress's agreement on a new minimum wage and hike in electricity tariff, which disrupted operations at the Abuja metro station. President Bola Tinubu, as part of effort to cushion the impact of fuel subsidy removal on the residents of the nation's capital, directed the train services to run for free for 6 months during the commission of the commercial operations of the metro last week. In this report, WDL's Abuja correspondent Usman Mara pays a visit to the train station on the first day of the strike and details the sorry state of affairs at the facility.
At the usually busy Abuja metro station, the strike, which began this Monday morning, brought operations to a halt, as at the time of my visit around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, security guards were seen loitering around or sleeping in different positions as long as they were comfortable enough to do so, evident of the fact that there were no activities to keep them busy at the station. Head of security at the station, Jane Ijo, told me that the train station had operated in the morning before the union leaders arrived and disrupted operations in compliance with the declared strike.
We are here from the ticket, where they normally get ticket called ticket. So this is where we are right now. And for today, the place is normally functioning well. 8 o'clock train have moved, 10 have moved, waiting for 3. Then they come in lock everywhere because of the strike. A passenger, Shegun, narrates his experience on the morning train that arrived at the station from the Idu station.
Today I board on the train from Idu to metro station here, and there's increase in patronage. There's a lot of student excursion, and as at today, operations still took place before this labor member now came on board to kind of make them to also recognize the ongoing national strike.
As the strike enters day 2, and with more members of the workers' unions joining, including those in the financial sector, pressure is mounting on the government, which has been meeting with the labor leaders in an attempt to come up with an amicable resolution of all outstanding issues. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Osman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Lawyers in Burkina Faso began a 4-day nationwide strike on Tuesday to call on the authorities to respect and enforce judicial decisions by the state against all persons. According to Niampa, the aim of this decision is to call on the authority to respect the rules governing criminal procedure in Burkina Faso with regard to any person implicated relating to the harmonization of rules governing the legal profession in the UMWA area, and ensure that court decisions are respected and enforced by the state with regard to all persons. During these 4 days, the lawyers will refrain from attending or participating in hearings before all courts without exception, as well as jurisdictional bodies. Now we head to Guinea, where Sergei Lavrov, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, has ended his visit on Monday. He met with the President of the Guinean Transition, General Mamadi Doumbouya, as they discussed matters on bilateral relations. The Guinean head of state also reassured Lavrov that Conakry is open to cooperating with everyone. Echatisu has the rest of the story.
Lavrov's last visit to Conakry dates back to 2013, 11 years after the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs returned to the country to discuss several subjects with the Guinean authorities, including mines and military cooperation relating to the two countries. Here's Sergei Lavrov.
There are Russian companies that are still working in Guinea, and they are implementing their project. There is also cooperation in the field of training. We are helping Guinea to train civilian specialists. There is also military training, which the students of the Guinean University are benefiting from. I know that it is important to strengthen our cooperation in military and technical matters, because there is always the question of increasing the defense capacity, and we are looking at boosting this area of cooperation.
General Mamadi Doumbouya also assured the head of Russian diplomacy that his country is willing to cooperate with Russia as it does with other foreign powers. This was indicated by Morisada Kouyaté, Guinean Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Guinea is an open country, a sovereign country, but a country that cooperates with everyone. So It was said and reaffirmed by the head of state that Guinea remains a friend of the Russian Federation.
On the matter of requests made by Russia on the operation of its mining companies in Guinea, the Guinean Minister of Foreign Affairs noted that Conakry intends to review its commitments. Following the departure of the head of the Russian diplomacy, it is the turn of French President Emmanuel Macron's Africa advisor to arrive in the Guinean capital.
HRTC reporting there. Let's come back home here to Senegal with the sentencing of two opponents of the government found guilty of spreading false news by Dakar court. A rights activist Bah Jagate and religious cleric Sheikh Tijan Jao receive an equal sentence of a 3-month jail term and a fine of 100,000 CFA francs each. In video of the two from 2 weeks ago, the two were heard attacking the Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, an offence punishable by the country's law. Jagate and Imam Tijan Jao were initially accused of insulting the Prime Minister and held in detention for weeks until their conviction on the 3rd of June. Arrested on the orders of the state prosecutor, the two fell foul of the law after they shared dissenting opinions of the comment made by Sonko regarding the abominable subject of LGBTQ rights in the country. Bajagate and Imam Sheikh Tijan Jao become the first individuals to be arrested and sentenced by the current regime of President Bachiru Diomaye Faye. Meanwhile, in bidding the court for the repression of economic offences and terrorism, the CRIET has affirmed its earlier 10-year prison sentence on former head of the Immigration Service, Florent Agbo. The former Director General of the Immigration and Immigration Directorate was convicted in January 2023 in an alleged case of issuing Beninese passports to Cameroonian nationals. The fine of 5 million CFA francs against the former Director General was also maintained, but the lawyers of the senior police official who had filed an appeal say they do not intend to give up. They have announced that they will take the case to the Supreme Court. Well, recall Florent Agbo was convicted in 2022 by the Beninese courts for abuse of office in an alleged case of issuing passport to 6 Cameroonian nationals. These foreigners, apprehended at the airport while on their way to Ecuador with the passports, were subsequently sentenced to 3 years in prison and banned from entering Beninese territory for 10 years. Meanwhile, the Norwegian Refugee Center NRC on June 3 launched its flagship report on the world's most neglected displacement crisis. The event, which was held in the Senegalese capital Dakar, seeks to draw attention to the plight of countries that have been neglected despite being hit by worsening humanitarian crisis. As the Giberica reports, the affected countries receive little or no assistance and have never become beneficiaries of international diplomacy efforts.
The Norwegian Refugee Council's annual report of the 10 most neglected displacement crises in the world aims to call attention to the oversight of the displaced population. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Cameroon and Sudan rank among the top 10 highlighted countries affected in the continent. John Egeland, the Secretary General of the NRC, explains some factors responsible for this.
I think that Africa is getting too little global attention, and again, there is too little intercontinental solidarity within Africa. Perhaps it's also because they are not seen as strategically important, some of these countries.
Egeland says the neglect has worsened the plight of displaced persons and caused them enormous suffering.
I met widows who told me about having fled for their lives from their burning villages. They were alone in caring for the children, and the situation was desperate. There was a lack of clean drinking water, there was a lack of food, there was a lack of shelter, and there was too little schools for the children and no real health care.
The NRC is urgently calling on government and concerned stakeholders to reverse the trend and address the neglect. To achieve this, Marin Olivesi, Advocacy Manager for the NRC in Burkina Faso, says it is important that humanitarian assistance be provided according to the needs of the displaced persons.
This is a call to, again, make sure that the compassion that some donor countries, the public or listeners can have towards certain crises is not only for crises that hit closer to home. That at the end of the day, the political mobilization, the media attention, the mobilization of funding is not as discrepant whether we're talking about a crisis happening in Europe or in Africa. We need everybody's help, but also for donor countries to not disengage themselves from certain countries with whom maybe they don't necessarily consider that the new authorities or new governments are partners.
The NRC further listed the Democratic Republic of Congo, Honduras, Central African Republic and Chad as topping the list of neglected displacement crises in the world.
Ogaberica reporting there. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Organized Labour Nigeria says strike continues pending Tuesday review meeting. Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs Sergei Lavrov ends trip to Guinea with assurance to work closely with the coup nation. Political atmosphere gets tense in Ghana as NPP and the C express varied stance on the Electoral Commission directive to withdraw party agents. That's another half of the news, and the Gambian government refutes the report of scarcity of cement. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Oh, don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org, YouTube, and Facebook. Let's head now to Ghana, where the two major political parties, the governing New Patriotic Party, NPP, and the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, are at variance with the decision of the Electoral Commission, EC, not to allow agents of political parties to observe the ongoing voter transfer exercise. While the governing NPP is in support of the EC's decision, the opposition NDC has insisted that party agents would go ahead to monitor the exercise across the country. Ahead of the December 7, 2024 general election, the EC began the transfer of votes, application for proxy voting, and replacement or loss or damaged voter ID cards on May 30, 2024, and is scheduled to end on June 14, 2024. This exercise has caused some rancor among political parties, especially with the NDC and NPP. John Fringbaugh is the NDC representative.
We will not withdraw our agents from the transfer centers. Look, we have on authority specific constituencies and specific number of votes that the MPP wants to transfer to those constituencies. We got that document less than 15 minutes when the EC statement about political parties should withdraw their agents also started circulating. You may want to ask, where did I get my information about the stolen biometric equipment at the headquarters of the EC from? I will not disclose the source, but I'm the very person who got the information about the stolen biometric equipment at the headquarters of the EC under CCTV surveillance, which they are admitted to.
Well, according to the EC, on the grounds of transparency and magnanimity, it decided to allow party agents to observe the process. Well, here is MPP Representative Kofi Ajampong.
Party agents to observe the process. However, the EC feels that what has transpired at the various stations, the agents have caused some form of commotion which has led to violence. So they have decided that political parties must withdraw their agents to allow peace prevail. And for us, as a party, MPP, we think that coming events cast their shadows. So what has transpired was not a good thing, and that the EC, in their wisdom and with the authority vested in them under the Constitution, decided that we should withdraw the agents. We abide by it.
Ghana holds its general election on the 7th of December 2024. Well, amid reports of cement scarcity, the biggest cement factory in the Gambia has denied this report, claiming it rather has more supply than demand. This comes as hundreds of trucks remain packed at the Gambian-Senegal border after importers refused to pay a recent increment of custom duties. Sanklo Danko reports.
There are about 500 trucks stranded at the border. Each truck is taxed $180,000. Paying that amount simply means we should not import cement.
That was Babu Gay, a local cement importer, expressing his frustrations over the recent increment in customs duties for cement importers. The government increased customs duties from $30 to its equivalent of 44 cents to $180 for its equivalent of $2.66 per bag, and from $30,000 or its equivalent of $442 to $180,000 Gambian dollars or its equivalent of $2,656 per truck. This has left hundreds of trucks stranded at the Gambia-Senegal border as they are denied entry following the refusal of the importers to pay the new taxes. The situation has fueled reports of fears that there could be a scarcity of cement in the country. However, the biggest cement factory in the Gambia, Jar Oil Company, denies these claims. After a tour of the factory's headquarters in Farato, where operational work was ongoing, the general manager of Jar Oil Company, Momodu Hydra, said they produce over 100,000 bags a day, more than the daily cement consumption in the country.
Today, Jar Oil Company has an installed capacity of over 100,000 bags a day. When Jar Oil gets into the market and we do production 24 hours only for 3 days, we float the entire market.
Mr. Hydra also refuted claims of price increment.
Price of cement has not changed a bit. Our factory price here is still $355. We have not changed it. But what was happening is, they will come here, it has happened these few days, they will buy it here for $355, go to their shops and sell it at $450.
Meanwhile, Omar Sise, a cement dealer, corroborates Mr. Hydra's claims about the cement prices.
Here, we purchase for $355 per bag and sell it for $375 because we pay for our own transportation.
$375 because transport.
In the meantime, authorities say the increment is meant to protect local businesses that produce cement locally. For Newslink in West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankula Janku reporting from Banjul.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, let's join Darlington Pop and Monrovia for the newspaper review.
For today's edition of Press Review, we have the Front Page Africa newspaper, the News newspaper, and the Heritage newspaper. So we begin a review process with the Front Page Africa newspaper that says, DEA bosses at war. We see the photographs of officials of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. We will leave it right there. We see the photographs of the 3 officials of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. On the front page of the Front Page Africa newspaper, mute on bigamy allegation. This is Ali Kebe, the Senegalese national who was recently appointed as post ambassador by President Joseph Yuma Boakai. And the 2 women in his photographs are posted on the front page of the Front Page Africa newspaper. On the back page of the Front Page Africa newspaper is all about sports. From the Front Page Africa newspaper, the News newspaper is next. Chaos again. Abri Kroman, Fadiga stirs up LDEA. We see the photograph of these officials of the Liberian Drug Enforcement Agency. Stern calls for probe in AFL soldiers' death. Charles Sirleaf is dead. That's the son of former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. 9 companies to invest in Buchanan Port, Director Carpet discloses. Boakai consoles ex-President Sirleaf. Nationwide schools assessment on the way. Catholic bishop attending West Africa Episcopal Conference. From the News newspaper, our last stop for today's edition of Press Review is the Heritage newspaper. On the loss of her son, Charles Sirleaf, President Boakai extends condolences to former President Sirleaf. MFDP, that's the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, partners commit to success of arrest agenda. On the back page of the Heritage newspaper, tragic loss. Aspiring Liberian musician Raymond Cooper dies in Monrovia. Wow. This is a sad story here. Court proceedings disrupted as Josh Willie Fans' lawyer. Gender administrator implement $44 million project. A $44 million United States dollars project targeting more than 200,000 persons in Liberia has been launched. We will leave it right there. On that note, that is how we love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. But before we go, these are the newspapers we actually followed on today's edition. We followed the front page Africa newspaper, the News newspaper, and the Heritage newspaper was our last stop. On that note, thank you so much for following, and bye-bye.
Many thanks, Ellington Popper, with a newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, we'll take you back to a big story in Nigeria, the nationwide strike by the organized labor. The demand by labor for living wage is generating public discourse with the feasibility of the amount requested by the unions. For clarity, labor is demanding a living wage of 494,000 naira, which is about $400, and the federal government is proposing 60,000 naira, which is about $40. Well, we spoke with governance expert Austin Agbe on how feasible and realistic these amounts are.
Well, I think that we must look at it from a realistic perspective, and I like their question about whether it's feasible or doable. It is not feasible and it is not doable. 617,000 naira. That is about $40 per person at the lowest level, and minimum wage increases all salary from the lowest to the highest cadre. It is not realistic. It is not. I've said that again and again in other fora and in other media briefing. It is not realistic. However, the current minimum wage, which is 30,000, which is about $21, is an insult to the Nigerian workers. So what do we do? The proposal of 60,000 naira, which is arguably around maybe around $50 or thereabout, is also not realistic. So I have agitated or proposed that what is realistic is about half of what the labor is demanding, which is about 300,000. Living standard, everything in this country has increased. Only salary has refused to grow up. Electricity bill has grown, dollar has grown, Gari, the bag of Gari has grown to about 10,000 to 80,000 naira per bag. If you want to buy a car now, it has grown. Fuel has grown from about 140 naira to about 700 naira now. Everything has grown up, everything. The only thing that remains constant is arguably the air we breathe. If government is in control of air, probably would have increased. The cost would have increased. My proposal, with all due respect, anything short below 200,000, will no longer be okay for Nigerian workers.
Right, Mr. Austin. Many say that this can be feasible. It can be achieved if a government can slash the costs of governance. What do you think about this? Slashing the cost of governance, merging the assemblies, and other elements of government.
It is extremely difficult to slash the cost of governance. Many people say it, including when you hear campaigns of these elected officials. They will tell you they will slash this, they will do this, they will avoid corruption. But soon after they take over, the same campaign they were up against will become the major architecture of the administration. This current regime, you will expect that the cost of governance would have been cut short. But no, it now has the highest ministers.
Austin Agbe is a governance expert. And in sport brief, Novak Djokovic pulled off another astonishing escape as he beat Argentine 23rd seed Francisco Corendolo in the 5-set thriller to reach a 15th consecutive French Open quarterfinal on Monday. The world number one shrugged off an injury to his right knee as he came from 2-set 1 down to outlast Cerundolo 6-1, 5-7, 3-6, 7-5, 6-3 after 4 hours and 39 minutes. In football, Kylian Mbappe has signed a 5-year deal to move to Real Madrid from Paris Saint-Germain. The Spanish club announced on Monday. The announcement is the combination of Real's long courtship of one of the most prolific forwards in world football. Mbappe 25 said on social media the move was a dream come true. And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Kristen Mukudi and Maudo Jif for the technical assistance. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County.
Radio Kaigama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you.